Data-driven decisions are important when you run a native advertising campaign. But when you start from scratch, you may ask yourself, what are the most important KPIs? What are the KPIs I should lean on to take a data-driven decision? In this video, we will speak about which KPIs are important when you start completely from scratch and how you can interpret them in your favor. Hey everyone, my name is Marcel Sattler. I'm the founder of PurpleBlack, a native advertising only agency. What we're doing on a daily basis is we run profitable performance marketing campaigns on native advertising traffic sources like Taboola, Outbrain, Yahoo Gemini, and many more. And when you start completely from scratch, you may ask yourself, what are the most important KPIs? And usually it's pretty simple. If you're selling, for example, an e-commerce product, everybody will tell you, okay, just look on the return on ad spend, like the ROAS, or look on the CPA and the cost per acquisition. But the problem is, when you start completely from scratch, you don't have these informations usually, and you have to take other KPI metrics here before it comes to the final conversion to take the right decisions and to push the campaign into the right direction. And exactly this is what we will speak about in this video. Little disclaimer here, this is a general video, so it's not specifically for Outbrain, Taboola, MGID or whatever, but this video here has the fundamentals for all of these native advertising platforms. So don't worry, it doesn't matter even if I haven't mentioned now your traffic source you want to start with, it's working always. So let's take a look at the funnel. When we take a look at the funnel, as mentioned already, at the end you have the final conversion. In e-commerce, this might be a purchase as an affiliate. Also, when it comes to lead gen, this might be a lead or a qualified registration, whatever. And again, usually you try to optimize based on this information here, based on the final purchase, but you don't always have it in the very beginning. So therefore, we have to start a bit more from top. And when it comes to a tracking setup, I always recommend, first of all, when you run native ads, to go with an advertorial. If you don't know what's an advertorial yet, check out my other YouTube videos where I speak about the optimal setup for a native advertising campaign. But long story short, an advertorial is your key to success. And not just one advertorial, please try to split test multiple advertorials to see what's working better. Sometimes just little changes like a different CTA or so, like a CTA button, a different one, can change or improve your click-through rate from the advertorial from 4% to 10 or 15%. So it's crazy what you can do sometimes just with a little changes here. So therefore, go for different versions, go for different A/B tests and figure out, again, driven by data, what's working the best. And you see, here already it comes to data. So you need a data source, you need a source of truth to interpret the data here at the end of the day. Long story short, when you start here, you have the advertorial, and here I recommend you to fire already an event, which is usually like content view or view content. This is just more or less for tracking purposes. This view content does not have any specific reason here. But the next things, they have a reason. So then, for example, you have like view product. And I, again, would recommend you to track all of those events. And then you have, and here I'm going now for e-commerce funnel, but you can interpret it also for lead gen or affiliate. It's almost the same stuff. Then you have view product, and then you have an add to cart button. And after the add to cart button, you have, or after the add to cart in general, you have start checkout. And yeah, then you have the purchase, which leads to the final conversion. So this is the funnel more or less. And again, you usually will have in the beginning a bunch of view contents, you will have a bunch of view products, but you might have not a bunch of add to carts or start checkouts. And of course, you will also not have the final purchase conversions. Therefore, when it comes to a tracking setup, even though you will not have that much, but for example, if you start with a Taboola campaign, it might make sense for you to add, for example, start checkout, and also add to cart in the conversions window. So you do this very easily. You just click to tracking and there you have all your conversions and you can mark one of those conversions as a final conversion. And I would do this and I would recommend this in the beginning for the add to cart and for the start checkout and of course for the purchase, that you have like 3 conversion events. This will help the algorithm here to gather more data faster and to bring the campaign to the right direction, because this is kind of a micro conversion. And this works pretty well with Taboola, this works pretty well with Outbrain. In Outbrain, you just select in a campaign the pixels here and the events, and then you can also add them and give the campaign some micro conversions. This is pretty useful, especially in the beginning. Afterwards, like when you spend multiple of $1,000 in this campaign or on that account already, I would not recommend this anymore. But especially in the beginning, when you start from scratch, I would highly recommend to add those micro conversions. Important here to understand is, if you do so, you have to interpret the data differently. For example, in Taboola, you have to go to columns and add a column to see, okay, how many final conversions I have now, because it's also a fact your total conversions are messed up, because in your total conversions, now the add to cart buttons are included, now the start checkouts are included, and of course the purchases are included. So that means you will have, instead of like 10 purchases, you will have there, let's say 300 conversions, which is obviously wrong, because all of these add to carts and start checkouts, they also fired as a conversion event, which you don't want, but it's a good direction for the algorithm. Again, you can still see all the final conversions data within Taboola and within Outbrain. That's not a problem at all. Just add a column with the purchase event, for example, and then you see all the data transparently for you. This is the recommended way here when it comes to the campaign itself. But when you start completely from scratch, you do not just have the campaign, but you also have some different things. And I mentioned already, it makes sense to split test different advertorials. And I see many times, still now in 2024, unfortunately, that people, they start a campaign and they just start with one advertorial. And that's a huge mistake, because you burn a lot of money with that. So even though if you don't have like a completely differently advertorial, it's okay, but at least try to change the headlines, try to change the call to action buttons to have a valid A/B split test. You do not need to have like 4 or 6 versions or multivariate split testing. No problem if you don't have it in the beginning, but at least have an A/B split test. That's pretty simple to set up. You can set it up sometimes in the traffic sources. You can use a tracker like volume, like Clicklane, whatever, or you can also use a link shortener here, like Pretty Links or so, to split test it technically. So technically, it's pretty simple to use a link and to use a redirection to make an A/B split test here. And also the most funnel builders like ClickFunnels and so, they have built inside A/B split test tools. So this is technically pretty simple, you just have to do it. And when it comes now to your advertorial split test, let's say you have 3 advertorials, you have A, B, C, and you send to all of these advertorials, when this is like 100% of the traffic, every advertorial will get 33.33%. And here too, 33.33%, and here the same. So out of 100 clicks, every advertorial will receive approximately 33 clicks. And here, the first important KPI here is the CTR. And the CTR is the click-through rate. And the click-through rate means, okay, from 100% of my people, how many people click a button to go to the next page? Because usually from the setup here, you have the ad. After the ad, you redirect people to your advertorial, and from the advertorial you redirect people to your offer. And you want now to count here with the click-through rate how many people from your advertorial click to the offer. And it's not always the higher the better, but if your click-through rate is somewhere, let's say, and again here depends a bit on the market, on the situation, and a lot of things, a lot of different circumstances. But however, if you just have a CTR from, let's say, 2 to 3%, this is usually a problem. The rule of thumb, and again, this might depend on the market, on the niche you are in, on the device type. So there are a lot of circumstances which put a variety here inside. However, it should somewhere between 12 to 15% to have a good advertorial. So if it's way below, like here around 2 or 3%, your advertorial sucks. You need a different advertorial. It's irrelevant, or it's not fitting here with the ad, and the advertorial it's not fitting. Somewhere here in between you have an issue, or there might be some technical glitches, whatever. Long story short, if you see in your analytics tool, okay, my CTR is 2 to 3%, then you know you have to change the advertorial, because it will get pretty hard to make this campaign profitable. If it's like somewhere in between here of those, let's say 12 to 15%, it's okay. If it's 11, it's okay. If it's 15.5, it's okay. But if it's like way more, if it's like, let's say 30% or 35%, then it's again a problem, because that means people are not really reading it. It might be too catchy, because when it's that high, in the majority of cases, I would say in 10 out of 10 cases, you have the problem that a lot of people are clicking here to your offer page, but it's not that they buy, because fun fact here, they do not buy. They just click here, and this might be because your advertorial is too clickbaity. You promise people something to get 1,000 USD for free if they fill out a quick form or listen to a Spotify song or so, you will have a very high CTR. But if you cannot fulfill the promise here on the offer page, you will receive a lot of clicks, but you will not receive any conversions. Long story short, it's important here to analyze your CTR. And again, this is something I see many people are not even measuring, to analyze the click-through rate from the advertorial. A very important KPI you should take care of the very first day when a campaign starts. Last but not least are your ads, which I want to mention here in this video. So native ad usually is a combination of two parts. One part is the headline and the other part is the image. And this together is your ad. So one of those combinations are your ads. And usually I recommend to start, it depends again on the platform a bit, but rule of thumb is to start with 3 headlines and 3 images, and then you have 9 ads. And in the beginning, your main idea is to put them very differently. And what I mean by that is you have, for example, one headline with a number. You have one headline where you prove to be the expert, like doctors recommend ABC. Main idea here is to try on purpose very different directions to see, okay, which is working the best here. If it's working with the numbers, if it's working to put a city name inside, there are usually, you can see this in those brackets, like placeholder, dynamic placeholders, which you can use. So what's working the best? This is a split test. When you start with a completely new account from scratch, you have to split test a very, very different things here. And the main idea here is not to create the very best headline. The main idea here is to analyze which kind of headline is working the best, because little secret here, you will not make the best headline ever from the very first day. It's almost impossible because you don't have any data here. So even with experience, we still, for example, in our agency at PurpleBlack, we still have to try and test different things because, come on, we haven't studied in Hogwarts, we don't know it. So we have to see it and we have to analyze it. Therefore, we are going on purpose into very different directions with the headlines, but also with the images. To give you here an idea, when you have like 3 images, then the idea is, for example, to have an illustration. This is like the first one. The second one is like a product picture. And the third one is like a portrait or a person, like a headshot. And now the idea is to analyze what's working the best, where we are receiving the best CTRs. Again, here also the click-through rate is important. And also here you might have a too high one or a too low one. If your CTR is somewhere at 10%, it's way too high. If it's like somewhere at 0.05, it's way too low. And here the main idea is to see, okay, based on the data, what's working the best? And for example, here you see, okay, portrait is working the best. So then the idea is to create a new campaign where you just have portrait pictures. It's more or less like a lookalike campaign. And here in this campaign, this is like your portrait campaign. And here you put in portrait of woman, of a man, and of a family or a dog or whatever. And again, here you do like a lookalike, what's working the best. Okay, woman is working the best. In the next campaign, you try, or here in this campaign, you try blonde, brunette, red-haired woman. You know, this is like the way you can improve your campaign every day better and better. This is the main idea here, to analyze the data and work with this data and reinterpret it in the way that it's useful for you and in your favor. This is the main idea here. What we have done here with the images, you do not just do with the images, but you also do it with the headlines. So in this information you combine, you put them over each other and then you combine it, and then you can create always like you can create better ads every day based on what the market outside needs or what's working based on real data. And if you use it correctly, that's a superpower for your ad. A little bonus which I want to mention here is you should also, of course, take care to see on which publishers your ads will be visible. Little hint here, sometimes the CTRs of the publishers are crazy. This is usually dangerous because that might occur that you are not using something like a block list or a whitelist in the background. The main problem here is some networks like Taboola or Outbrain or also the other ones, they have access or they are also visible on push publishers. A push publisher is usually like a smartphone game or so. Long story short, you do not want to run on those publishers usually in the majority of cases. So I would recommend you, before you start here, to reach out to your manager, to reach out to your rep and tell them, hey, I want to avoid push placements. Please use a block list or whitelist in the background, whatever. With this last step alone, you can save thousands of dollars. And by the way, if you want to receive more of those useful tips to master your native advertising game, then I can recommend you our school community. In our school community, you can learn everything about native ads, even if you're an affiliate, solopreneur, if you're an e-commerce, lead gen, search arbitrage, content arbitrage, whatever. We have up-to-date content, and you can also ask us your questions and you will get a reply. And with this, you can really master your native advertising game. It's a monthly subscription. It's easy accessible. Just go to school.com/native-ads. The link you can also find in the show notes here of this video. I hope you liked that video. If so, I would extremely appreciate if you give me a thumbs up and of course when you subscribe to my channel and activate the bell to receive an update when I upload a new video about nothing but native here on YouTube. Have a good one. See you next time.